Hi there everyone. Now back in February I paid £262 for what my wife describes as a heavy duty torch. The question is she right? Possibly, probably, she normally is, but hopefully it's a little bit more than that. You see, I spotted it on the Kickstarter website with the description, a portable focusable light source for photographers and videographers, designed in the shape of a handheld flashlight, but has all the specs required for professional creative work, and I was hooked, and you can imagine why. So after an extremely long wait, it finally arrived today. So let's see what they sent, and later on hopefully we'll see why I bought it. Okay, inside this zipped bag that they put it in is the bitLighter itself. So let's take a peek. I'm not sure why they call it bitLighter, by the way, so please don't ask. So that's the bitLighter, the torch, yeah. But in the box there's also a charging lead, an extremely handy clamp which fixes to the, I'm really not too sure what to call it. Anyway, it's what we'll use to attach this to a tripod. This is spare head 2 to all the Red Dwarf fans out there. Anyway, you see they give you the option, the bitLighter guys, not Red Dwarf, the option of interchangeable heads. Basically you replace one LED pad with another. Now I could have chosen a very warm 3000K, a 3500K, 4000K, or a 5000K, which is accepted as daylight light. To be honest, I can't remember which one I chose, so let's have a look. Well, that one's the 4000 and this one's the 5000. So as my studio lights are around 5600, we're in the right daylight ballpark. I guess I turn this to switch it on, away from the camera of course. Yep, that's true. And I have different options of different power, up to 1700 lumens, or if I choose the boost mode, it'll kick out 2700 lumens. We'll see later on if that's enough. I'm told it'll run for about 2 hours at the normal power. If you switch it to the higher power and then the time varies dependent on the ambient temperature. Why is that? Well, the temperature cutout is likely to limit it before the battery runs out. I'll test that at some point too. I can also vary the beam by sliding the head backwards and forwards. Actually, that feels very well engineered. In fact, the whole thing has a really solid feel to it. Though at £260, I'd hope so. But because this wouldn't be one of my videos if I weren't doing a comparison, what could I use an alternative when I'm out and about photographing? Well, obviously I could use a flash, but let's stick with constant lighting, and I'll talk about why, and we'll talk about flash later. Now my wife calls this a torch, and the advertising people were very keen on emphasising that one of the differences between this and a tactical flashlight is flicker. So let's compare it to a tactical flashlight, or as over here we call it a torch. This one is allegedly 6000 lumens, so it's way more powerful than the bitLighter. But that doesn't necessarily matter, does it? Because it's for a different thing. I can adjust the beam the same way as the bitLighter. But the important thing to me, and to probably you guys out there too, is will we get that flicker? Well, the bitLighter guys reckon we will, so we'll test that too in a minute. Now, I'm not actually sure what the light temperature is of this torch, flashlight, whatever you want to call it, because the pesky manufacturers didn't think anyone cared. It's only us photographers that worry about that, or videographers. But I'll tell you what, if it's dark and you want to see where you're going, this baby fits the bill. So, it's very portable and light, but is it any good for photography? Well, We'll see later, and we'll test that flicker as well. And we'll also check the colour, won't we? The colour temperature. Anyway, next up will be, our test is this. It's a Neewer LED light. It was only £29 and it's small and reasonably bright with an adjustable power output up to 66 lumens. And it does that using the 160 LED lights. Now the only most unnerving thing about this unit is that they appear to have saved a lot of money, which is great, but they've done it by not worrying about a battery cover for some reason. But I can confirm that when you clumsily drop it, they all manage to stay in place somehow. I wouldn't want to use it in the damp. I guess I wouldn't want to use it in any of them in the damp, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, you can change the light temperature by fitting this filter, or focus the light tighter with this filter. But you see, the trouble with using filters is you reduce the output, and this unit can't really afford to lose much more, can it? Anyway, next up is another Neewer, but it's a lot more powerful this time. It's about 3,360 lumen. It's also a lot more expensive at £87, but if you do some maths, it's actually 50 times more powerful for only 3 times the price of the previous one. And that makes it a real bargain, I reckon. Now, amongst its plus points are that you can adjust the light temperature from 3200K through to 5600K via this one here. Does it by tweaking the 660 LEDs, 330 yellow and 330 white, depending on your preference. It's also dimmable by this here, and I tell you what, it looks good at the back. It's got dials, it's got a switch, and you can't beat that, can you? But do you know the most exciting thing about it? Is not only does it plug into the mains, it also uses batteries. And the batteries it uses are the same batteries that I use for my Atomus. I find that quite exciting, I've got to be absolutely honest with you, because in this day and age, if you can use the same batteries for 2 completely different items, and I've got 2 types of batteries here for my Atomus, I find that exciting. Now, all we've got to do is test all of the things I've shown you. Remember, the main thing we're looking at is this. So there are times that instead of me being behind the camera where it's safe and cozy, I have to be out front being photographed. Whether it's for advertising or for a quick shot for the latest video thumbnail, to be honest, I don't enjoy it much. So I thought, why not use the opportunity to test all these lights while I'm at it? And then I'm going to make the whole experience much more fun, hopefully, for you and me. Okay, so let's see how I got on, or how I get on. See you in a bit. Okay, so here we have all the lighting, all set up ready. I'm going to be walking from that direction. We'll obviously spin the lighting around. I'm using my ZFC to record everything. So all I need for it now is for it to go dark. Okay, let's go dark. Because the best time to test it is, of course, at night, when it's the only light source. I'm going to take the diffuser off, the large Neewer that I'm using at the moment, because we'll be using hard light, because that's what the torch uses naturally. Okay, I'm set the camera to manual, shutter speed 125, f-stop 5, I believe, 4.5, I'll check with that, and I think we're using an ISO of 500, I'll also check that. Okay, let's get on with it. Using these large Neewer lights was actually quite comfortable for me as a subject, probably because the LEDs cover a larger area. The light almost wraps around me. The reason I'm about to stick my arm out is because I'm measuring the distance from the light. The optimum with the unit at full power was about 7 foot away, almost 2 meters. Here's a couple of stills from the camera at 1 meter and 2.5 meters. Next I used the small Neewer video light. As this was the only item designed to attach directly to the camera, it only seemed fair to put it on the tripod so it was tested like everything else. 3/4 to 8 centimeters seems to be the optimum distance for the smaller video light, and again you can see me measuring it. That close proximity was far too uncomfortable for real world use. Here's a couple of photos. You can see how the light dissipates beyond that 3-foot distance. Next up, it's the torch or tactical flashlight. I ended up about 18 inches away from it before it would actually light me up properly. The light temperature wasn't too bad, maybe a little cold, but nothing to worry about. It was the small amount of light this fully charged 6,000 lumen tactical flashlight gave out that surprised me. As expected by most of you, it was totally unsuitable for video or stills. Here it is without me in the shot, and now I've switched the bitLighter on, and that was at the normal level, and it completely overpowers it. I think that proves the point. This is the bitLighter with the 5000K head fitted and still set to the normal level. As the subject, I was able to stand about 2 meters or 6.5 foot away, and I found it pretty comfortable to be that far from the light source. And again, the light seemed to wrap around me quite well, in a similar way to the larger, newer video light that I tested first. However, when I switched it on to maximum power, I was completely blinded, and I could no longer see the camera screen behind it, or anything else to be quite honest. At full power, 6 to 8 foot seemed to be the best, though I managed to get about 12 foot away from it and still be just about visible, although it was still quite uncomfortable. Walking back, you can see me counting my steps as I was completely disorientated by the light. I fitted the 4000K head and repeated the process. With the power back to the normal level, I was impressed there was less of a critical optimum distance with the bitLighter than with the other lights. Considering there's only one LED doing all the work, the bitLighter really is quite impressive. Just to complete the experiment, I switched it back up to full blast, and again, somewhat predictably, it was way too bright for me. By the way, why was I talking about hard light at the beginning? Well, normally I'd put my light source or flash through a diffuser to reduce the harshness. The bitLighter and torch don't have an obvious option, except I'd probably bounce them off a reflector. But to make this as fair as possible, I used hard light throughout. In other words, I haven't used a diffuser or any other form of softening with the equipment. Here are the images from the two heads. I think the 4000K is a better light balance than the 5000K on this occasion. I've got to give a shout out for the Nikon ZFC. It makes perfect sense for the self video or photography. I can watch myself via the rear screen and adjust accordingly. And finally, well, almost, why would I use constant lighting instead of flash? Well, a constant light is more predictable and often a lot less intrusive than flash, so I tend to use it for young or nervous pets. Most cameras sync at shutter speeds of 125 or 250, so constant lighting gives you more scope. Don't get me wrong, I use flash as well, but it's best to have more options up your sleeve rather than less. Okay, so this is the bitLighter, and I'm pretty impressed with it, to be quite honest with you. I don't know what you think, but I think it's probably a welcome addition to all my other stuff, all my other lighting equipment. Maybe you think I was mad to get it, I don't know. Let me know down below. If you like this video, then please, please, please like it. And if you really liked it, don't forget to tell everybody about me. Thank you so much. See you soon.